The next item of business is members' business debate on motion 20457 in the name of Neil Findlay on Whitburn Academy's Be Heard group, Shattering Mental Health Stigma. And this debate will be concluded without any questions being put. Would those members who wish to speak in the debate please press the request to speak buttons, and I call on Neil Findlay to open the debate for around 7 minutes, please.
Thanks, Presiding Officer, and can I thank the members who signed the motion to allow it to be debated, and can I welcome members of Whitburn Academy's Be Heard group to the gallery today. They're very welcome. To put this debate in the context, in December almost 11,000 young people were waiting to start treatment with CAMHS. Treatment that is supposed to start within 18 weeks, but in the last 3 months of last year, only 3 NHS boards in Scotland met that standard. My own health board, NHS Lothian, saw less than half of young people within the 18-week time frame, with 1 in 3 people waiting over a year. There are now 30,000 open cases with CAMHS in the system, and if your child is in mental health crisis, they need help now. They don't need it in a year, they don't need it in 18 months' time or even longer. They need help now. And Minister, we hear a lot from the First Minister and others about health services in England and Wales and elsewhere. Well, I would urge the Chamber to listen to this. In 2016-17, the rate of mental health admissions for young people under the age of 18 was 61 per 100,000 in Scotland, 33 per 100,000 in England, and 13 per 100,000 in Wales. And the suicide rate for young people aged between 15 to 24 was 15.1% per 100,000 in Scotland, 9.7% per 100,000 in Wales, and 8.1 per 100,000 in England. These are shocking, shocking and completely unacceptable statistics, because delays in diagnosis and treatment can have a devastating impact on young people and their families, and this can have a long-term effect well into adulthood, and for some their entire life, with a greater likelihood of unemployment, homelessness, addiction, imprisonment and even early death. This is particularly true in areas where there is widespread material poverty and where the impact of deindustrialisation is still all too evident. It's these issues and the inadequacy and absence of services that prompted pupils and teachers and families at Whitburn Academy to fight back. They and their inspirational teachers, led by Heather Forbes, refused to sit back and accept the status quo. They saw a desperate need so they established the Be Heard group, a pupil-led health and wellbeing project which aims to remove the stigma associated with mental health issues and encourages pupils, staff, parents and members of the wider school community to be heard and to talk about their mental health. The project's mascot, Ellis the elephant, represents the notion of mental health being the elephant in the room. With £6,000 of funding, they set up a health and wellbeing hub, which is a quiet, relaxing area where people can go for help, support and information. They established a network of peer supporters called the Ellie Friends, who listen to worries and concerns and signpost people to help and advice. The Academy has 50 mental health first aiders, over 20 staff and pupils trained in safe talk suicide prevention, and 17 LGBT ambassadors. The group regularly addresses assemblies where pupils and staff are encouraged to open up and talk, all in a bid to destigmatise mental ill health. Now, I first came across the group at a concert they held in 2019. It was one of the most moving and powerful events I've attended in my 17 years as an elected representative. In front of their peers, teachers, support staff, parents and carers and pupils told their stories. They performed music, relaying their experience and struggles with anxiety and depression, suicidal thoughts, living with an eating disorder, coping with issues around sexuality and identity, losing a parent or a close family friend, or living in a situation where there may be drugs or alcohol dependency or violence. It was moving and it was hugely inspiring. Since then, they have been awarded a COSLA Gold Award and a West Lothian Council Stellar Award. But more importantly than all of that, the feedback from the school community is extremely positive, with many saying mental health first aid helped them deal with the stress in their lives, including exam time. In 2018-2019 saw the school achieve its best ever exam results. Now, I'm in awe of these young people and their teachers, but also the parents and support staff who have came forward and shared their problems and helped build resilience and support. The Scottish Government can learn from the work being done at Whitburn Academy and should refocus its work on prevention, early intervention and promoting well-being across Scotland. A recent FOI request by the Times Educational Supplement Scotland showed that there is no clear delivery plan for rolling out school-based counselling. So I've got an idea for the government. Why don't you go and consult with the people in the gallery from Whitburn? Listen to the parents, listen to the carers, the teachers, and most importantly, the young people who are telling this Parliament loud and clear that the system is failing young people across Scotland and the services are simply not there. Pointing the finger at IJBs or councils or Westminster or anyone else doesn't help a single child. It doesn't take the pressure off a single family who are at their wits' end, and it doesn't address the inadequacy of services now. The reality is, CAMS services across Scotland are at breaking point. Children and young people are too often only seen when they're in crisis. The service urgently needs investment to ensure that children and young people are diagnosed and treated quickly when they need it. No one should be left to fall through the net, but sadly we know all too many are. I'm advised that there are only 48 specialist mental health beds across the whole of Scotland for under 18s, none north of Dundee. That is shocking. This leaves children and young people at home when they're at crisis point, leaving families struggling to cope. Others are admitted to non-specialist paediatric or adult mental health wards, completely inappropriate for their needs. Audit Scotland has said young people's mental health services are complex and fragmented, focused largely on specialist care and response to crisis, with less action on early intervention and prevention. The report called for a long-term financial plan, a task force to work alongside COSLA on children and young people's mental health, assurances that data on mental health services are up to date so that effective scrutiny can be applied and that there is joined-up working to fill in gaps. Presiding Officer, all of us have heard glib statements, and we've probably done it ourselves, about the parity of esteem between physical and mental health. It doesn't exist. If we look, for example, at waiting times for a physical ailment is 12 weeks, yet for mental health it is 18 weeks. There is no parity of esteem, so let's not pretend there is. Presiding Officer, I notice I'm over my time. I wanted to mention a number of people, most of all of the peoples involved, and I wanted to speak about the agencies, the local agencies that they're involved with, but I don't have time. But what I would say is, in summing up, is to congratulate the staff, the pupils, the parents and the wider school community who have worked on the Be Heard project. I wish them well for the future and urge them to continue providing support and solidarity to each other in this and this wider school community. But I also say to them, please continue campaigning. Don't give up, because it's only pressure on decision makers like the people who sit in this Parliament that will mean that we can bring about the change that we so desperately need.
Now, I'm going to have a word with everybody in the public gallery. I'd prefer it if you didn't clap or anything, and there's a reason for that. Is because if people clap all the time, or if they disagree with something, and they maybe start booing and hissing, and it all becomes a bit silly. So please don't show any appreciation or otherwise, and then when we get to the end of the debate, perhaps you'll get that opportunity. Thank you. We move to the open debate, and can I have speeches of around 4 minutes, please? Angela Constance, followed by Jamie Greene.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I very much appreciate Neil Findlay for securing this debate this lunchtime. While Whitburn Academy is not within the Almond Valley constituency, it's actually in the constituency of Fiona Hislop, who's sitting down the front next to the Mental Health Minister there. Nonetheless, there are young people from my constituency who attend Whitburn Academy, mainly young people from the villages of Falthouse, Longridge and Stonyburn. And one of the purposes of members' debates is to recognise, celebrate and say thank you to those who are doing great things to strengthen the bonds within our communities, in this instance, within and beyond the school community. And we always need to find a space within our busy parliamentary schedules to appreciate those who give freely of their time, of their talents, and often for no fanfare or reward, simply by the desire to make life better or to right a wrong. Therefore, I'm very glad to have the opportunity to place on record my appreciation of Whitburn Academy's Be Heard group and everything that they are doing to shatter the myths and stigma around mental health. And as a former mental health officer, I'm well aware of the important links between myth-busting and early intervention. Much has changed since I was at a West Lothian school 30 plus years ago, or indeed 20 plus years ago when I started my mental health social work career, when mental health issues in young people were either not believed, or they were hidden, or they were downplayed. And in terms of where we are today, we have travelled part of the journey, although that road has yet to be complete, and that mental health issues are treated far more seriously. And I think it is a good suggestion, I've touched upon this with the Minister before, that public policy and services in Scotland should always be informed first and foremost by those with lived experience. And I'm sure the constituency MSP, along with Mr Findlay, would want to encourage engagement between the Be Heard group and the Scottish Government directly. We have already heard today from Mr Findlay that the Be Heard group has been rightly recognised with a West Lothian Council Stellar Award. No mean feat, because we have great schools in West Lothian, and they were also achieved the COSLA Gold Award for tackling inequalities and improving health. So many congratulations and well done. But what really impressed me about this project is that it's pupil-led. The role of mental health ambassadors is very important. The work they've done in reaching out to primary 7 pupils during their transition times, and the work that they have done that has meant that they are now a benchmark for other schools in West Lothian and hopefully elsewhere in Scotland too. Because as I said, we do have very good schools in West Lothian, and I want to just briefly touch upon some of the activities within the schools within my own constituency. Inverarmond Community High School and James Young High School have been very active during Mental Health Week with time to talk events and workshops celebrating uniqueness. I know that the counselling service within Inverarmond Community High School is well utilised and appreciated. It is, of course, welcome that funding for school counsellors has increased from 4 million to 16 million, but I do revert to my previous comments about the development of services having those who use those services at their very heart. And I want to also mention Neil's Hug, a great local suicide prevention charity led by the marvellous Donna Patterson, who does amazing work with students at West Lothian College. And I know Neil's Hugs often frequently visit West Calder High School and St Margaret's Academy as well. And I know that my old high school, West Calder, has done some really interesting work regarding reaching out to men and boys in terms of mental health support. Presiding Officer, I'll just briefly say that in terms of the more formalised services and mental health support systems, I think it is fair to say there's a journey yet to be travelled to deliver on the principle, ask once, get help principle. We know that there are issues certainly in the Lothians area where NHS Lothian are woefully behind the 18-week CAMS target. They're at 48%, well below the 90% target, and that long waits for CAMS is indeed unacceptable. And I would never demur from the importance of resources and capacity. And the final point I would want to make, Presiding Officer, is that given that since 2006, spending on CAMS has increased 182%, that over the lifetime of this Parliament, £5 billion will be spent on mental health. This, to me, seems to be as much about systems as well as resources, and we need to get the systems working far better. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Jamie Greene, followed by Mary Fee. I think it has to be a generous 4 minutes.
Generous, thank you. You're always generous, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I thank Neil Findlay, not just for his motion, but the speech that he's just delivered. I know the chamber is emptied out after the theatre of First Minister's questions, but I think arguably this is the most important debate this Parliament will hear this week. Since being elected to this place a couple of years ago, I've been encouraged by the way the Parliament's approached the stigma around mental health. There's often been consensus amongst members. The fact that we're having this debate, the fact that we're talking about it in the public domain is encouraging. But listening to the statistics that Neil Findlay shared with us today are far from encouraging, Presiding Officer. I learned this morning that 56% of Scots with mental health problems face discrimination, not just at work, but from friends and family members. We know that there are record high numbers of young people in Scotland waiting for CAMHS treatments. 11,000, that's a shocking statistic. And we know that a quarter of Scots don't even feel comfortable talking about mental health. So we talk about shattering the stigma, and we talk about tackling mental health, but we've got far more work to do. Angela Constance said that we are still on a journey. I agree. There is a journey to travel. But why is this journey taking so long? I'll be happy to.
Neil Findlay.
I raised this point when we debated drugs as well, in the debate on that. When we have a consensus, it all feels fuzzy and warm, and we all agree, and it's all very nice. But there's some things that we need to break the consensus off and have a right old argument about, because pressure is what will make things change. And I think that cosy consensus on issues like this is what has got us to a state of, I believe, complacency, when only 48%, as Angela Constance mentioned, of young people are being treated.
Jamie Greene.
I agree, Mr Findlay. Don't get me wrong. I mean, please let me finish my speech. There's nothing cosy about what I'm going to say over the next couple of minutes. I would like to pay tribute to the work that Whitburn Academy is doing with the Be Heard project. The initiative that the forum that they've created will allow people to share their own personal stories of what's affecting them, stories of what's going on at home, domestic abuse, alcohol or drug abuse, anxiety, illness, and even bereavement or loss of a parent. And let me tell you, as an only child who grew up in a household that had its fair share of some of those issues, I know only too well what it feels like to have to deal with one's own domestic situation on your own. There was nothing like Be Heard when I was at school. No young person should have to deal with that. It is an utter shame on us as politicians and as a parliament if there are still young people relying on projects like this. Top-down action from the government is welcome, and I'll be pleased to hear what the government has to say, and I'm sure we'll hear some positive numbers and big figures about money that's going into the top. But it seems to me, actually, the grassroots is where some of this work should go. The Be Heard project is a perfect example of bottom-up, community-led efforts that will tackle mental health issue. And I think we could establish more pupil and school-led environments like this. We should have a proper look at the role that schools play in tackling mental health in young people, because I know these projects do make a difference, and I'm sure the people in the gallery are testament to that. Last night I chaired a meeting of my own cross-party group, the LGBT cross-party group. We discussed the issue of mental health of young people a lot. Mary Fee was there. I got some statistics presented to me last night around young LGBT people in Scotland who had thought about suicide. A third of them had actually tried to kill themselves. As it stands at the moment, 2 lives are claimed every day in Scotland. That's 2 lives too many. Children's mental health waiting times have doubled since 2017. There's nothing cosy about that statistic. We know that women remain significantly more likely to develop mental health problems. We know that young men are significantly higher prevalence of suicide. And staggeringly, over 5 children every day are phoning suicide hotlines. 5 young people in our country. So yes, let's celebrate initiatives and good work. Let's celebrate the work of the teachers, the pupils and the staff at these schools that come to the Parliament, and we celebrate and we welcome it, and that fuzzy thing is a good thing, Mr Findlay, but this is the saddest issue that we have to face. I commend Whitburn Academy for their work. We could see more of that, but what we really need to hear in the next few minutes is what the government has to say about these sad and shocking statistics. Thank you.
The last of the open debate contributions is from Mary Fee.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and can I too begin by thanking my colleague Neil Findlay for tabling this motion and securing the support to debate this very important topic today. And the success of Whitburn Academy's Be Heard group has rightly been recognised in the Chamber and by COSLA and West Lothian Council in the awards that the group have won. And the young people behind the campaign to raise awareness and remove the stigma around mental health should be very proud of themselves for their success and for developing a crucial initiative to support their peers and their classmates. And I am particularly pleased to see them in the gallery today. And mental health has rightly become a more mainstream health and social issue. We need more initiatives like the Be Heard group to tackle the stigma around mental health. And peer support is a key factor in supporting mental health in schools, as many young people may feel they cannot speak freely or openly with professionals or adults. And we know that there are significant problems with mental health support coming from the NHS, as recent figures show that over 5,000 children and young people waited over 18 weeks for mental health support, and that is simply unacceptable. And the stats are shocking, and action does need to come now. And Neil Findlay is right when he says that we need to stop talking and do something, and we need to do it now. And statutory services like the NHS and the whole education system must make an effort to improve the mental health of children and young people. It cannot be left to children and young people, as well as the third sector, to fill in the gap where public services fail. And such initiatives and organisations should supplement, not replace, statutory services. And as admirable as the Be Heard group is, it should not be left to young people to take the lead on supporting each other's mental health. And, Presiding Officer, research points to 1 in 4 adults suffering from poor mental health at some point in their life. And improving mental health services for children and young people is a preventative spend for the future, as it is a current priority for children and young people today. And I do hope that by supporting and encouraging more children and young people, in line with better provision for mental health support from schools and from the NHS, we can tackle the pressures that many of them face today. And I would also hope that more schools can take the lead of Whitburn Academy to encourage pupils to take the lead on peer support, as the Be Heard group provides. And in closing, Presiding Officer, can I thank Neil Findlay once again for securing this debate and congratulate all of the staff and the pupils at Whitburn Academy for their award-winning success and for the fantastic work that they do in helping to break down the barriers and the stigma surrounding mental health. Thank you.
I now call Clare Haughey to respond to the debate for around 7 minutes, please, Minister.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I'm pleased to respond on behalf of the Scottish Government, and I think it's imperative that we have conversations like this and that we aim to break down stigma associated with mental health, and that's why debates like this are so important. And I want to thank a few people in particular for bringing this debate together today. Firstly, I'd like to thank Neil Findlay for lodging the motion for this debate and for his continuing support for the Be Heard initiative. Schools across the country are doing a fantastic work to support our young people's mental health and tackling the issue of stigma. And I would like to thank Mr Findlay for bringing this particular example to my attention. I was particularly pleased to be able to speak with Fiona Hislop, whose constituency Whitburn Academy is in, and hear how impressed she has been by the work there. Secondly, I would like to thank both thank and praise the pupils from Whitburn Academy and their teachers being involved in the Be Heard group. It's been inspiring to hear about how they have changed the culture of the school so that pupils, staff, parents and the wider community can access the support and a safe place in the school to talk. And I was also impressed to hear about the recognition that this initiative has recently received, with both the West Lothian Council Stellar Award and a COSLA Gold Award for tackling inequalities and improving health. Supporting good mental health is a priority for the government. Mental ill health is a significant challenge which requires us to respond in an ambitious and systematic manner. Breaking down barriers for our young people to access appropriate services is crucial, along with the removal of the stigma associated with mental health. And that's why we are taking forward approaches which focus on prevention, early intervention and clinical services. We know that young people often face barriers in reaching out for mental health support, and initiatives such as Whitburn Academy's Be Heard group are helping to reduce the stigma that surrounds mental ill health. Breaking down stigma and discrimination is essential if our policy ambitions within the Mental Health Strategy, the National Suicide Prevention Action Plan and the Programme for Government are to be achieved. As stigma reduces, more children and young people are feeling comfortable in coming forward for mental health treatment, which shows that attitudes towards stigma are decreasing. And we all, of course.
Neil Findlay.
I thank the Minister, and I've not disagreed with anything she said, but I think that's part of the issue, but that we see more young people and their families coming forward. But in Lothian, a third are waiting more than a year. This is the nub of the issue, Minister. That yes, people are coming forward. The treatment and the services are simply not there.
Clare Haughey.
Thank Neil Findlay for that intervention. And further on in my speech, I will be speaking about the actions that we are taking as a government, and I'm taking that as a minister, in conjunction with other agencies, and also with the input from children and young people and their families, which I think is key to ensuring that these services actually deliver for them. We want to make sure that anyone who needs help can access services that are appropriate to their needs, and we're making significant changes to meeting increasing demands for services and to ensure that everyone gets the right treatment at the right time and in the right place. There were 21% more patients seen in 2019 than in 2013, and it is really positive to see more young people coming forward for help. However, increasing demand puts pressure on services. So we are rolling out a package of measures to support positive mental health for all, support workforce development and to improve access to the high quality services in CAMHS and psychological therapies. We all agree that long waits for mental health treatment are unacceptable, and that's why in this year's programme for government we set out plans to work with NHS boards to improve their performance against waiting times and to reduce long waits. And boards will develop trajectories that will set out in their annual operating plans that ensure performance is tied to funding. And my officials are already in regular contact with boards to support them to produce local improvement plans in just a second, and robust trajectories which are based on detailed modelling of capacity and demand. The audit of rejected referrals published in 2018, which Mr Findlay referenced, contained a range of recommendations to improve the effectiveness of CAMHS, and we accepted all 29 of these recommendations. As a direct result of the audit's findings, we announced the establishment of the Children and Young People's Mental Health Task Force, which produced their final recommendations on improving CAMHS in July last year. And the Children and Young People's Mental Health and Wellbeing Programme Board is currently considering the delivery of these recommendations through 9 key deliverables, which includes the development of a CAMHS service specification, which was published last month. Mr.
Jamie Greene.
Can I thank the Minister for giving way? If young people are waiting a year, which some of them are, surely that's unacceptable to all of us. I appreciate to the Minister herself. But if the NHS boards are not delivering, no one's yet answered the question in the Chamber, why? Why are they waiting so long? Is it a lack of resource? Is it a lack of people? Is it a lack of trained nurses? What are we doing to get under the skin of the problem here? Why are the waiting times so long? And what is the government going to do with those NHS boards who have the longest waiting times? How are we going to get them down prompt?
Clare Haughey.
I think you raise a very valid point, and as Minister for Mental Health, I want to understand exactly why some boards are underperforming, whereas other boards are able to meet their waiting time targets and provide services in a much more timious way. We've also committed to developing a community mental health and wellbeing service for 5 to 24-year-olds, and the service will offer immediate access to counselling, self-care advice and family and peer support. And this will ensure that support is available quicker, preventing where possible issues that require specialist services. And this will also help to reduce demand and allow those young people and families who do need specialist services to receive them more quickly. I hope this reassures members that we are continually increasing our investment in CAMHS. In fact, the overall spend in CAMHS in Scotland has increased year on year since 2011 and has increased 182.7% since 2006. We've come a long way since the 2018 Audit Scotland report. As colleagues are aware, we have announced a package. I will in a second, Mr Findlay. As colleagues are aware, we announced a package of measures in our most recent programme for government to strengthen support for children and young people's mental health and well-being.
Neil Findlay.
This again is right to the heart of the issue. If we're increasing funding and yet we're seeing growing numbers of people not being treated, there is a fundamental problem, and it might be the problems that Angela Constance referenced. But if we continue to put money in as the government claims, and yet the results are worse, we have a major problem.
Clare Haughey.
As I said earlier in my speech, there is increasing demand year on year for CAMHS services, which is why we are looking at developing early intervention and medium-term care packages and options for people to access services that are of a lower level than or a lower intensity than CAMHS, which are probably much more appropriate for those individuals. Provision of access to a counsellor is one part of the support that we're putting in place, for example. Through our investment in pupil equity funding and Scottish Attainment Challenge funding, we're seeing local authorities and schools putting in place wider mental health supports that promote positive, nurturing learning environments. And we're also commencing work to design and develop a new mental health training resource for all school staff. And that will provide our valued school practitioners with the skills and confidence to support and assist young people. We do recognise that school plays an integral part in supporting young people's mental health, but they can't do it alone. And it's important for all professionals involved in a young person's life to be able to support and promote positive mental health, to be connected and to collaboratively engage to ensure the best possible outcomes for children and young people, and that those are achieved. And that's why we are also taking forward essential and crucial work to strengthen wider community services. I'm determined that an ongoing dialogue with young people is at the heart of how we develop our policy on mental health, and we must ensure that we provide young people with the opportunities to get their views across directly to government. We must also work hard to remove stigma, and I'm committed to acting on what I'm hearing and providing the advice and support that young people feel they need. This is an ongoing process, and the partnership working to develop the Be Heard initiative at Whitburn Academy is an important part of that. I want to thank all members who have contributed to the debate, and again to thank Neil Findlay for bringing this really important issue to the Chamber this afternoon. Thank you.
That concludes the debate, and this meeting is suspended until 2:30.